Hey, welcome to Dating Advice for Men Who Love Women Live. I'm Jim Wolf, and today we're going to talk about how to have attractive, interesting conversations with women, even if you're shy or introverted or you're not the most outgoing social person in the world. And the first thing I want to say about that is you don't have to be super social to have attractive conversations with women. It probably helps in terms of meeting a lot of different women to have more options. But once you're sitting down with a woman for a coffee or at a happy hour or whatever it is for your first date, or you meet her at an event, or you meet her at a wedding or whatever, and you're having your first conversation with her, at that point, it doesn't matter if you're outgoing or not. And you should lean into your own natural personality and not try to be someone that you're not. And in fact, that's going to make you already more attractive and interesting when you just own it. Like, yeah, I'm not that social of a person. I'm a shy, introverted guy. I'm not really that gregarious sales guy. You don't have to be that guy to attract the right woman for you. And in fact, there's a lot of women out there who are shy as well, a lot of introverted women too. And there are probably even some outgoing women who would prefer maybe a quieter, more introverted guy. So again, you don't necessarily have to be super outgoing and social to have attractive conversations with women, especially the right woman for you. So let's get that out of the way right away. And the second part of that is when you're talking to a woman on a date, for example, or your first conversation with her when you just meet her, excuse me, a lot of guys think of it as kind of a performance where it's like you're doing everything and then she's evaluating that. And then, like, because of how you do stuff, she either likes you more or not. Well, kind of, but not really. It's more about the feelings that you're creating together and the experience of being in that same room together, how it feels to her and to you together. And she's also kind of performing for you in a way. It's a two-way street. And a lot of times we get in our heads and we think it's only a one-way street. And so if you focus on creating good feelings with her and less on trying to show off, you're going to do a lot better naturally. And so own the fact that you're not as social. If you're not, it's fine. Own it if you're a little shy, it's all right. And don't think of a date or a conversation with a woman as a performance. Because even though it kind of is a little bit in some ways, it's also not. And so take that pressure off yourself and try to remember that a woman gets to feel the way that you feel whenever she's with you. So if you feel kind of relaxed about who you are and what you're doing, she's going to feel more relaxed too. She's going to feel better also. And if you feel kind of like, she's going to feel all of those feelings when she's around you. And we want her to feel good when she's with you and associate good feelings with you. So work on trying to feel really good about yourself in the situation when you're talking. And then that's going to transfer to the women that you're talking to. They're going to feel that when they're with you as well. And the last part of this first section is having attractive conversations with women is a skill just like golf. So, just like learning how to play golf doesn't necessarily mean anything about you as a person in general, neither does the way that you have conversations with women. It's a skill that you can learn just like learning to play golf. And there's all kinds of levels, just like in golf. And you don't have to go win the Masters, the top level tournament of golf, to enjoy golf. You can just go to the driving range and hit a few balls. You can be pretty good at golf. You can be whatever level you want. And it's the same thing with attracting women and having conversations with women. You don't have to be the best attractive conversationalist in the world to attract the right woman for you. You just have to be good enough, and you can definitely learn the skill good enough to do that. And so I'm going to give you 3 things that you can do to have more attractive and interesting conversations with women, regardless of your personality, how shy you are, how introverted you are, how not outgoing you are, whatever it is. Or even if you are outgoing, these are going to help you as well. So, number 1, the first thing that you should do is, whether you're outgoing or not, there are easy things that you can do that will make all of your conversations with women more interesting and more attractive. And you should do them every single time, and they're not difficult. That's why I'm bringing them up. Excuse me. So I'm going to give you three examples of easy things that you can do. Hey, what's up, Ryan? Glad you're here, man. I'm going to give you three examples of easy things that you can do whenever you're having your first conversation with a woman that you should do every single time. And the first example is using a guess instead of all of those normal interview questions that we ask each other. This is something that you can do anytime you talk to a woman for the first time, and I think you should do it every single time, and it automatically makes you more attractive and interesting. So, for example, most of the time when you meet anyone, including other guys, we say common things like, "So, what do you do for a living? Where are you from? How many brothers and sisters do you have?" Whatever. Those are like interview kind of questions. And it's totally fine and natural and normal to ask those things to someone when you first meet them. There's nothing wrong with it. However, if you turn just at least one of those into a guess, some people call it a cold read, it makes the conversation more interesting already and more attractive. And women tend to like it when you talk this way. So instead of just saying, "What do you do for a living?" Cool. "Where are you from?" Cool. "How many brothers and sisters do you have?" Cool. "What's your sign?" "Oh, wow, me too." Instead of that, you can turn one into a guess every single time. So you can say, so let's say you're talking to her for a little bit, you can say, "So, you're a nurse, aren't you?" Now, there's a lot going on there, even though it seems kind of simple. First of all, you're making a statement, which is already more attractive than asking a question. So you're saying, "You're a nurse, right? You're a nurse, aren't you?" The second thing is you're taking a risk. And it's a small one, but it's a little social risk. You're guessing. And I'll come back to that in a second because we don't want to insult her with your guess either. But you're taking a little bit of a risk, which is a little attractive. And it's interesting to her. It's about her. And now it's like, wait, why does he think that about me? So there's two ways that could go. Let's say you guess that she's a nurse. And she is. She's like, "Oh, wow, how did you know that?" "Yeah, I am." Now she's going to feel kind of a little more connected to you. Like, how does this guy know that? She might think you're kind of smart or savvy or something mysterious about you. Like, oh, that's interesting that he guessed that correctly. And if you're incorrect, she's still going to want to know why you thought that about her. Like, why did you think I was? No, I'm not. I'm a lawyer. Why did you think I was a nurse? And that's her already kind of coming towards you and wanting to know why you are thinking something. That's also attractive and cool. And now we're priming the pump of her coming towards you. So it does a lot of stuff and it's really easy to do. Just change one of those questions into a guess every time you talk to a woman for the first time. Doesn't matter if you're shy or introverted, you can do that. It's an easy one. So I think we should always do that. We have to be a little careful though here. We don't want to insult her. You want to make her feel cool. And so you want to guess something that's kind of cool, like, "Oh, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're a nurse," something that's kind of got some strength behind it. Or like, if you say like, "Oh, you seem like you're from California," you don't want to say something insulting after that. Like, "Why'd you think that?" And you're like, "Oh, well, you seem kind of like a dumb blonde from California." You don't want to insult her, right? So that's not what we want to do. But you do want to guess something that kind of makes her cool. And then if she says like, "Oh, why'd you think I was a nurse?" Say something not insulting and that's also cool. Like, "Oh, you just seem like you have a little bit of a caring vibe to you." Something like that. And you say seem because you don't know her yet. So you just say like, "Oh, you seem like you have a caring vibe." Or if you guess that she's a lawyer, you can say, "Oh, you just kind of seem like you have that energy of being in control of things. That you have the command of the environment." Something like that. Something that's not an insult. And then you move on from there. And that already makes your conversation with her more attractive than most of the guys she talks to who are just like, "Oh, yeah, cool. What do you do?" "Oh, yeah, cool. Me too. I'm an accountant." "Oh, yeah." It gets kind of boring. So now, even though if you're introverted, You're more interesting already just by making one guess, and you can do that every single time you talk to a woman. And the second example that I want to give you of easy things that you can do to make your conversations more attractive and interesting is just to avoid heavy subjects. So let's say you're driving to your first date or to the bar or whatever, and you hear on the news like a plane crashed today and 367 people died. You don't want to go on your date or to the bar or whatever and meet women. You're talking to her for a while and be like, oh, hey, did you hear about the plane crash that killed 367 people? It's crazy. You don't want to bring up heavy subjects for the most part. Religion, sex, politics, save those for later. For your first 2 or 3 dates at least, you don't want to bring up heavy subjects very much or at all. Try to avoid it if you can. And if she brings up something like that, you can show her that you're able to have a serious conversation like that about a topic like that for a little bit, but then you want to lead the conversation into a light and playful direction as soon as you possibly can in a smooth way. Because love is light and playful, it's not heavy and serious, and heavy subjects do not raise female interest level. Even if you agree on the politics or the religion, it doesn't make a woman more interested in you. And all we're doing in the initial stages of dating, from the first moment you meet her until she falls deeply in love with you, we're focused on raising her interest level. And heavy subjects don't do that, so we avoid it. Can you show her that you can do it a little bit? Yes. But for the most part, just avoid those heavy subjects, and you're already going to have more attractive conversations with women naturally. And again, we don't want to change who you are. We're just kind of modifying the things that we're doing in our behavior a little bit so that women are more attracted to you. That's what we're going for. And so don't bring up that plane crash that just killed 367 people. Lead her in a positive direction. Talk about more fun things than that. And this is really interesting because it not only applies to your first conversation or your first date or your first 3 dates with a woman, it also applies to your long-term relationship with a woman. So even after you've been with a woman for 25 years, you should take her out for a fun, light time, at least once every week or two at the most. And when you do take her out and keep dating her forever, when you do take her on those dates, you should still keep it light and playful, even if serious things are happening around you. Maybe your boss is being a jerk and things are stressful right now. It's really important to take her out for a fun, light time and not focus on those heavy subjects, even after you've been together for a long time, because not only does it create those good feelings in the beginning, it preserves them later on. So, this is very important from the first moment you meet a woman until you've been with her for as long as you're together. Keep it light and playful, avoid heavy subjects as much as possible. Now, of course, later on, you're going to have serious conversations, and you should. Before you get engaged, before you get married, there's a lot of things you got to talk about that aren't really that fun and light. And that's great. We definitely need to do that. But the first date is not the time for that. And then later on, you should continue to take her out for a fun, light time as often as you can. And then the last example number 3 of easy things that you can do to have more attractive conversations with women, even if you're introverted, is to qualify her. So when you're having your first or second conversation with a woman and you're talking to her for a little bit, maybe you're having a little bit of fun, you made a guess, she's like, oh, why'd you think that? Oh, that's cool, that's so funny. After a while of that, what you want to do is qualify her. And that means kind of give her a light compliment to say, like, hey, you're doing well, I'm kind of starting to like you, and I want to see more. And so you should do this every time you're talking to a woman for an extended period of time, for the first or second time. And basically, you say something like, you know what, you seem like such a fun person. Or you seem like such a cool person. Something like that. You seem like such a fun person. You seem like such a cool person. That's qualifying her. You seem cool. That's you're telling her it's a light compliment. You seem cool. Now you're saying you want to know more. So then you transition to an open-ended question. So I'm curious, if you hit the lottery Powerball jackpot tomorrow and you never had to work again, what would you do then and why? Or, so I'm curious, tell me, what's one thing I wouldn't know about you just by looking at you? And that's going to transition into the number two topic, the number two thing for today that you can do. So that third example is qualify her and then transition to an open-ended question. And that's something that you can do every single time you talk to a woman for the first or second time for an extended period. So you talk a little bit and then you say, you know what, you seem like such a fun person. So tell me, what's one thing I wouldn't know about you just by looking at you? Boom. Now we transition into the second thing, number two for today, which is let her talk a lot. You don't have to be super outgoing and social because, in general, she should be talking more than you. You want her to be talking 60 to 80% of the time while you just kind of lead the conversation and contribute back a little bit. That's the ideal. And so you ask her that open ended question, let her talk, and then you can encourage her, like, oh, do you have any more about that? Is there anything else you want to say? And then you can share back your side a little bit or tell like a short little story that's related or something. And then you ask her another open ended question that's not about a heavy, serious subject. And you let her talk a lot. And here's the crazy thing, when you ask women questions and they're talking to you a lot and she's sharing a lot about herself with you, the most interesting thing about that is that's when she feels like she knows you better and she's more attracted to you and more interested in you. So you become more interesting by being interested and curious about her and letting her share a lot. Most guys try to tell women all the cool stuff about themselves, like, oh, I got a Maserati, I work at this cool investment banking firm, I'm ripped, I work out every day, uh, I'm funny. You know, they try to brag. Not everyone, but a lot of guys do that. They think that they need to slip in somehow all the cool stuff about themselves so that she knows. Otherwise, how's she going to like me? Well, it doesn't work like that. She likes you more when she's sharing all the cool stuff about herself with you and she's kind of trying to get you to like her a little bit. And you do start to like her for who she is as a person because she's telling you who that is. And you're like, oh, wow, that's interesting. That's cool. That's when she feels more attracted to you, more connected to you, etc. Not when you're trying to convince her to like you with all the cool stuff about you. At the end of the day, she cares about that a little bit later on once she already feels attracted to you. Like, why do I feel this way? She's going to justify it with all the cool stuff about you, but that's not how she gets there. So let her talk as much as possible. And if you're kind of a not as social guy, more introverted, that's great for you because you can sit back, relax, just enjoy letting her talk a lot. That's usually going to be the best thing for you and for her anyway. And there's a lot of women, maybe she doesn't want a super gregarious guy who's going around to all the tables at a restaurant and talking to everybody. Maybe she wants a more reserved, cool guy. And when she's talking a little bit more than you also seem more mysterious and more of a challenge naturally without changing anything and without trying to think of the next thing to say in your head. So you're also more present in the moment when you're focused on allowing her to talk a lot and not trying to come up with the next cool thing to say that's going to make her like you. And so always try to allow her to talk more. Now, sometimes maybe she's not in a talkative mood and maybe you have to carry it a little bit more. That's fine. That doesn't necessarily mean anything's wrong. But for the most part, we want to encourage her to share a lot about herself in a positive, fun, light way. Then you share with her. And you share back a little bit about yourself, of course, just a little bit less than she does. And if you focus on allowing her to talk versus you trying to talk a lot, trying to come up with cool stuff to say, you're going to do a lot better. And then the third thing that you can do to be more attractive and have more interesting conversations with women, even if you're introverted, is to try out all of the conversational stuff that we talk about around here with everyone. Now, maybe you don't like playfully tease your boss or something like that at your work and take that risk. Maybe you shouldn't do that. But in general, You want most of the things that we talk about to become more of a natural part of who you are. And so, for example, let's say you're checking out at the grocery store. Use a cold read. Just say, "Hey, are you from California?" And you don't want to say it in an aggressive tone or a kind of creepy tone or a negative tone. You want to be neutral, just slightly curious, like it's not even that big of a deal to you if they answer or not, because you don't want to put any pressure or tension into the situation. It's kind of a neutral thing. You're just making conversation, but just practice it that way. Not necessarily with the store clerk, but you could. Or, when you go to an event or something like that, you're meeting people for the first time. Try making guesses about them, like, "Oh, are you a lawyer? You're a lawyer, aren't you? Are you an undercover cop? You're a ninja, aren't you? You just have that ninja energy going on about you." Try it out so that it feels more natural when you meet a woman that you're attracted to, and you don't have to only do it in that point. You shouldn't just try to turn it on when you're with a woman that you're attracted to. It's a lot harder than if you practice it a little bit. And you can practice it by approaching 100 women and trying it out. But you don't have to do that. You can practice it with everyone. A lot of the stuff you can practice with everyone. And it makes your conversations more interesting with everyone, not just women. It's kind of fun when someone guesses about you, as long as they're not doing it in kind of an insulting way. They're doing it in a way that's kind of making you feel cool and that they're curious at the right level. Not too much, just like, "Oh, I'm a little curious about you." It makes everything more fun and interesting for everyone. So practice all the conversational stuff as much as you can with everyone. So you're not just trying to turn it on when you meet that woman on a first date for a coffee or happy hour or whatever it is. And then a couple of more layers of this is if you're really not that great at conversations, besides letting her talk, you can also take her to do activities where you don't have to talk as much. Now, most of the time, I encourage you to go on first and second dates that allow you to interact with her and talk a lot so that she can talk a lot. But if this is a weak point for you, you can change that a little bit to doing more activities where you're kind of facing the same way together and doing something together and creating those emotions in that way. So, a lot of times when a guy goes overseas, for example, maybe he doesn't speak the same language even. A common thing that they could do for a first date is go play Connect Four or some kind of board game at a bar. That's an activity that you can do together that doesn't make you talk as much. And that can be effective if you're that kind of person. That can definitely work for you. You can go play pool, take her bowling for your second date. Whatever it is where you're kind of doing something together that doesn't involve as much talking. And of course, you still want to let her talk and share some stuff about herself, but you don't have to do it as much. And one interesting thing that I found out in my years of researching this stuff is that you actually create a stronger emotional bond with a woman or anyone, but with a woman too, in a romantic context, when you do something that's new for both of you together than any kind of deep conversation you can have with her. So, a lot of guys think like I need to have a deep connection with a woman, so we need to talk about these deep, serious, heavy subjects. Well, actually, if you do something with her that's new for both of you, you develop a stronger emotional bond than if you have any kind of conversation about anything. So I don't think you should take a woman skydiving for your first date, for example. That's kind of higher level. But let's say you've been on 2 or 3 dates and you want to ramp up that emotional connection. Now you can take her to do something where you both of you have never done it before. And it could be very simple, like even if it's just a restaurant that neither of you have tried before, if it's new for both of you, you're going to get those feelings a little bit. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Uh, Also, a couple more things. There are women who are introverted and shy as well. And if it's two of you that way, one of you has to kind of take the lead and break through those awkward, potentially awkward moments. And most of the time, that's going to be us. So keep in mind, like, be a little empathetic towards women as well. they might be shy or introverted too. And once in a while, just break through one of those potentially awkward moments and take a chance. Sometimes you just got to rip the band aid off and go for it, even if you're introverted. And then the last thing about that is most of us have a thing called spotlight bias, which means that human beings tend to think that people are paying a lot more attention to us than they really are. Even if you're a situation where you're one on one with a woman, we still kind of tend to think that she's paying a lot more attention to specific things about us than she really is. It's called spotlight bias. And the thing is, everyone at a party or something like that, or at a bar, they're mostly concerned about how they look to other people and how they're doing and how they're being perceived by everyone else. And they're not as concerned about you. So we're all kind of only concerned about that for the most part inside our own heads. And what you want to do is remove that spotlight bias because you realize that people are not as concerned about you as they are about themselves. And this goes back to letting her talk. So when you focus on others, instead of being so focused on how you're appearing and you make them feel good and feel cool, then you're going to do a lot better and be more naturally attractive when you're talking to a woman. And then the last thing that I want to say about this topic before we get into some bonus content is I highly recommend that you follow formulas for conversations with women. And they don't have to flow in an exact order. It's not like this section, this section, this section has to go exactly in a straight line, but there are elements of conversation that you should have to have an attractive conversation with a woman. And the formulas that allow you to do that are cool because it's not a routine. And a routine is just like you memorize a bunch of lines to say. And that makes you kind of robotic and it's not really you. But when you have a formula, you can put your own real personality into it and lean into that and still be naturally attractive. So I highly recommend that you use formulas, memorize them, and go through them every single time when you're having a first or second conversation with a woman. And if you don't already have it, we have programs about that. One of them is called Flirting Master, and that has a conversational formula in there that you can follow every single time. And if you just stick to that, you're going to be more attractive and more interesting to women. And then we also have an awesome program that just came out recently called Attractive Humor. And that has a attractive humor formula inside of it that you can follow to make sure that women are enjoying spending time with you and you can make them laugh. And so I highly recommend following formulas, but not necessarily routines. So that's what I have to say about how to have more attractive, interesting conversations with women, even if you happen to be shy or introverted. And then for some bonus content here, I'm going to share my screen here. And then, okay, it looks like I can't do that actually. For some reason, I'm not able to share my screen, so I just want to go over this really quickly. It's a post that I saw the other day from Ty Lopez. I don't know if you know who that is, but he had those videos for a long time about like me in my garage and knowledge. Knowledge is better than money. That guy. He had a Facebook post the other day that I thought was interesting. So I don't know if you can't see that even. I'll read it to you and then I'll comment on it. So Ty Lopez says, it takes about 18 months on average for someone you start dating to reveal their true personality. It's why so many people get fooled. So, yes, this is one instance for sure that Ty Lopez is correct. When you first meet a woman and you like each other, you have a lot of chemicals going through your body, a lot of emotions that you're feeling, and those cloud your judgment. Your high interest in each other clouds your rational judgment of the other person's character. And it takes a while for that to kind of fade a little bit, for you to be able to see if she has the character that we need to be in a long term relationship with her. And over time, you both reveal your real selves to each other more and more. And it takes about 2 years. So Ty Lopez says 18 months. I say 2 years. So it takes about 2 years for you to both know each other completely and fully. And that's why I recommend not getting married to a woman until you've been with her for at least 2 years. And I see people, they get married after a week of knowing each other. They go to Vegas and get married. Well, I don't recommend that for us. For you, I recommend that you wait at least 2 years of being with a woman before you decide to marry her, because by then you definitely both will know each other's true character. And then you can make an informed decision of whether you want to spend that much more time with her or not. Before that, it's too soon. And you can be fooled. We all can. And so 18 months is what Ty Lopez says. I think that's a time where you could get engaged, but don't sign that marriage contract until at least 2 years is up. So that's what I have to say about that. And now, if you have a question for me, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I will get to as many questions as I can. Yeah. So Ryan says you can guess that she's a veterinarian. It seems like you love animals. Yeah, you could guess that. Like you're kind of you have a nurturing spirit, something like that. You have a nurturing vibe about you. Veterinarian is not a bad guess, too, for sure. And if you love animals and you guess that she's a veterinarian, that allows you to talk about how you love animals too. So that's another thing. All right, so I don't see any questions yet. Okay, here we go. What is a good frame to have while doing the guessing question? Um, so when you talk about frames, I'm guessing that you mean like putting yourself in the higher position, whatever, something like that. You don't have to focus on that too much during that part, because you're already doing a lot of stuff inside a positive frame for you when you make that guess. Because, first of all, most people don't do that. It's not a common thing that she experiences every time she talks to someone. Most people just have that standard interview question conversation every time they meet someone, which, again, there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. So you're already a little more interesting, a little different. You're already making a statement. You're guessing something. You're taking a little bit of a risk. And you're also being a little vulnerable, because you could be totally wrong. So you're showing her a lot of confidence. And that already makes you in a positive frame in terms of your interaction with her. It's already putting you in a good position. And you're also putting her in a good position. So you don't want to put her down with your guess, because you're already coming from a strong place. You don't need to lower hers, because yours is already high just by making that guess. So that's a good question. You're already coming from a strong frame just by making a cold read like that. That's one of the reasons why it's effective. And then I have another question here. So an email a client sent me the other day. He had a couple of questions, and I can just cover those really quickly. So this client said, like, how to deal with it when your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, she's like saying I love you to you a lot, and you're saying it back a little bit, but she kind of doesn't think that you're saying it enough. Because most of the time we want to show our feelings towards her. Like we want to show her our high interest with our actions and attracting her the right way. That's how we show it. We don't say like I love you, right? And same thing when you're in a relationship, you want to show her that you love her by following the relationship maintenance program and giving her all that stuff like respect, affection, all that kind of stuff, right? So we want to show it. But if she starts verbally talking about it, like, hey, I don't, you don't say that enough. Like she's kind of complaining a little bit that you're not saying I love you enough. The way that you handle that situation is you say, well, would you feel better if I said it? She's like, yeah, of course. Then you say, all right, here goes. I love you, 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 I love you. Is that better? So you kind of overdo it one time, saturate it. And then you go back to showing her that you love her and not saying it as much. So that's how you handle that. All right, let's see here. I know that you talked about where to meet other women in your other video, but as someone who has initial fear in approaching, how can I be better at that in the reference of a college student? Yeah, I mean, I did do a live about this also, so you can refer back to that. But It's not easy for most people. So there's a couple of things that you should do. First, you should reframe it into you're offering them something, a possibility of something cool. And even if they don't take it, it's okay. So reframe that in your mind and feel a little bit less nervous because you're giving something instead of trying to get something. That already makes it a little easier to start a conversation. But those are just kind of mental tricks. Sometimes you just have to do it. And if you're in college, if you're at university right now, that's a really great time to meet a lot of women in an easy and natural way, just even in your classes. So let's say you're having a class with 30 or 90 students or something like that, and you see a couple of women that you'd like to meet. You don't have to go up to them right away after the first class. You know that you're going to be there for the whole semester. So keep that in mind, chill, relax, try to talk to the people around you and be social in general, even if you're not outgoing, just with the couple people next to you. Like start a little conversation and see if you can make that other person laugh. And you want that woman over there who you're interested in to kind of notice, like, oh, those people are laughing over there with that guy. And she kind of, you pique her curiosity already, if you can. And that makes it a lot easier for her to either come closer to you and maybe you start a conversation with her, or you, after the fourth class or the third week or whatever, you go up to her and say, hey, what's your name, by the way? I've seen you in class. And so try to prime the pump a little bit if you're going to be in class with someone for a long time. And you guys are in that classroom together for that whole semester. So you have a lot of time and a lot of opportunities to kind of approach her at some point. So take advantage of that. It's a great time to meet women. And the next time after that, like when you graduate from university and you start working at a job, it's not a great idea to date your coworkers in general. So that's when you're going to meet a lot of people in your adult life after college, most for the most part, for most people. And it's not a great situation to be in because you really shouldn't date those people as much. So when you're in college, take advantage of it as much as you possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean that you should ask every woman in every single class out on dates. It's also not really good because you don't want to get that reputation either. Just try to be a little social with the people around you in your classes, and then pick that one from that class that you want to approach. Ask her for her name, start talking to her a little bit, and then just ask for her number and take it from there. And then just do a little bit at a time. You don't have to have a long first conversation with her, just enough to say what's up. Maybe even the second time you talk to her, you ask for her number, but definitely ask for it by the end of the second conversation if you're in class with her every day or every week. Okay, so if you don't drink, what's a good place for hookups other than bars? Uh, it depends on where you are. You could do hookah. It's kind of a social activity that's similar, where you can talk a lot, get to know her a lot, go through all the stages that she needs to go through to feel comfortable with you and attracted to you enough at the highest level to actually go home with you. Obviously, alcohol makes that smoother because you're both a little more chill, more relaxed, more open to things for the most part, but you don't need that. And if she doesn't drink either, that's even better. So a hookah bar is one thing, but not every place has that. It's not really that healthy for you, obviously, but it is one idea that would work. And then the other thing is you can meet a woman on a dating app and take her out on a different kind of date. You can even just go for coffee, even if you're just going for hookups. You don't have to drink. So any kind of first date activity is fine for that. And in terms of meeting women for hookups, hookah's good. Um, and then events, weddings. Weddings is a great place for that. People that have that romance is in the air already. People are drinking, but you don't have to. You know, try to go to, for events like that. Also, just in general, for meeting the right woman for you in a long term relationship, one thing to keep in mind is that a good idea is to meet women at volunteer events and charity events. Because a woman who goes to like a charity gala or something and she's dressed nicely, she's thinking about other people already, she's showing that she's a giving person, she's already checking some of the boxes just by showing up to that event. And you can meet really good women at charity events if you're into that kind of thing. So if you were looking for a relationship, highly recommend that kind of event to meet someone as well. And, a different here's another thing, like bars, right? Like at a bar, it's like the stereotypical way to approach women. And yes, a lot of people go to the bar because they want to meet people, at least subconsciously, right? However, a lot of women have their guard up higher at bars, and it's actually even a higher level to get to attract them. So, other situations, you're going to a fun run or whatever, it's a 5K, you're standing there and there's like a group of women over there. Go say hi to one of them. Start a conversation because their guards are a little bit lower. It's more natural. You're both doing something that you're kind of into. It's a lot easier, actually. So basically, don't be closed off to opportunities to meet women. And when you see one coming your way, whether you're introverted or not, sometimes you got to push through a little bit of discomfort to get that reward on the other side. And remember, if she's interested in you, it's a reward for her too. So you're leading both of you into something awesome. All right. So this comment says, every time I talk to a woman I'm attracted to, I automatically go into performance mode. Yeah, very common. And trying to get her to like me. I almost want to say that's the default, and we have to kind of manually switch that off, even though I know it's counterproductive. Any tips to break that habit? So I think the biggest tip to break that habit is just to let her talk and focus on that. It's really important that she is talking a lot. So if you just pull yourself back a little bit and you remember, like, I need to make it so that she can talk a lot and share a lot about herself, and she's going to contribute a lot more. If you focus on that, you're going to be less in your head and less worried about your own performance. And it's not like you sitting up on a throne, like, impress me. It's more that it's a two-way street, and we normally don't treat it that way. We normally just treat it as you trying to impress her. And so just flip that switch a little bit. It doesn't take a lot. It just takes that one switch of, my goal in this conversation is because I'm attracted to her and I want her to be attracted to me. I'm going to facilitate her talking as much as possible. And that's my goal. And if she's not really wanting to, that's okay. I'll contribute. But I'm going to do it. I'm going to make it so that it's really easy for her to keep talking and talking and talking. And I'm going to enjoy listening to her. And I'm going to remember the things that she said. Focus on trying to remember the things that she said. So if you get a quiz afterwards, you can remember all the stuff that she shared with you. And this is going to come into play later. So let's say she's talking about herself a lot. And then for the third date, you take her to do something that she mentioned she enjoys on the first date. Not only is that a good idea for a date, you're going to get points because she realized that you listened to her. And most men are in their heads trying to impress her and not actually taking in what she's saying as much. So really focus on her side of things, and that's going to make her automatically more attracted to you, even if you do everything else the exact same. So my solution to this performance mode is let her perform, let her talk, encourage her, set the situation up. Your good job is to facilitate her talking a lot. Try to allow her to talk as much as possible. And that gets you out of that performance mode automatically. And we're still going to have it a little bit, and that's okay. A little bit of that is good. It's like eustress, it's the good feeling of stress, the feeling of stress that helps you. So when she says something, maybe that little bit of anxiety makes you come up with something faster that's funny to say, and you say it and you don't hold back. And now, not only is she sharing with you a lot, you're also having a witty comeback because you have a little bit of nerves, but not too much where you can't think of anything. So just pull back a little bit and focus on letting her talk a lot. Good. This comment says, "Good morning from South Africa." Yeah, good morning. It's actually, let's see, it's actually 5:45 a.m. where I am as well. I'm in a little country called Armenia right now. It's where I am right now. So it's morning for me also, even though it's evening time in the US. Hey, thank you, 16. I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot for the super chat. And Ryan says, "Thanks, Jim." Yeah, so good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. That's one of the best things about what I do is I have met the coolest guys from almost every country in the world now. It's amazing. I never expected it before. So that's one thing is guys from all over the world. And also I have several women clients. That was surprising to me as well. Even though my stuff is for men who love women, women are very open in general to learning about this stuff. And there's also women who are attracted to women. So it's really cool to see people from all over the world. And hopefully you're getting some value out of this. And it's interesting to see women around here as well. And everyone, of course, is welcome. Yeah, no problem. All right, and then one last question here, unless somebody else has something. So the second subject that this client asked me about is how to keep being a challenge in a long-term relationship. And really quickly, the answer to that is that you don't necessarily need to continue being a challenge forever. You should a little bit. You should always have a little bit of spice there, a little bit of tension, right? But there's two phases of a woman falling and staying in love with you. In the first phase, we're raising her interest level. And being a challenge is one of the things that raises her interest level. Then, once her interest level hits that 9 out of 10 or higher, where she's actually genuinely deeply in love with you, we kick it into maintenance mode. And all you have to do at that point is maintain her high interest in you. And there are different things that maintain her interest than the things that raised her interest there in the first place. So instead of just being a challenge and showing her your high internal value and internal strength and all that stuff, we switch from that to giving her the things that maintain her high interest in you over time, which is respect. Like when you're with her at a restaurant, you don't check out the waitress. Affection or positive attention. You know, like she comes at you with her new shoes, you're watching the game, you don't just blow her off. You say, "Oh, wow, those are such cute shoes. Awesome." Give her that full attention for a second, for example. So those are and continue to date her as we talked about earlier. Keep taking her out for a light, fun time every week or two. Those are the things that keep her interest level at that high level. And if she's already there, you don't have to be a challenge like you were in the beginning stages. So you kind of switch into maintenance mode. All right, here's another question from Christian. He says, when a woman doesn't text at all during the 4 to 8 days between dates, then it will be complete silence for that long. Is that okay? Or when you say to text minimally between dates, can I start one? Yeah, that's a great question. So, what he's referring to there is after you go on a date with a woman, it's really good. You want to send her one text immediately after the date to kind of cement those good feelings. So, you want to send her a short, simple text immediately that same night when you get home or whatever that just says, "Hey, thanks so much for the fun time tonight, Amber." Smiley face, send. Something very simple like that. And then you don't want to text her again for a while. And if she texts you back, don't respond unless it's something you have to respond to. And this is the same anytime. Like if she says good night, you don't have to say good night back. Just let it go. So you should text her right away. And then you want to wait 4 to 8 days or 4 to 9 days before you ask her out for the next date. That's what he's referring to. And during that time, you don't have to text her and she doesn't have to text you. It can be completely silent. Most of the time, you're going to send a little text or she's going to send one, and that's fine, but you don't want to do too much. So, my answer to your question is most of the time, if she's interested, she's probably going to send you a little text. If you want, in between, after a couple of days go by, you can send her a funny meme that's light and playful, that's related to something you talked about on the date or whatever, but you don't have to. And what we want to avoid is the nervousness about losing her because you're waiting longer. You want her to be thinking and wondering about what you're doing. And so when you don't communicate with her at all, she's going to be like, "Oh man, I thought we had a fun time. He texted me that we had a fun time. Why isn't he texting me?" You're giving her the opportunity to think and wonder about you. And if she wants to, she can reach out to you. She has that opportunity. She has your number. She knows where you are. She can say, "Hey, what's up?" So we want to give her that opportunity as much as possible versus texting her a lot. So I would most of the time just wait and then send her a text. And I wouldn't just ask her out right away when you text her after a few days. I would text her something to start the conversation, go back and forth a couple times, and then say, hey, let's meet at this place at 7 on Wednesday, whatever. So hopefully that makes sense. Most of the time you want to wait. Go ahead and let there be that dead space. We're afraid of that, but that's the good stuff. That's when she's thinking and wondering about you and her interest is going up the most. Because when you feel that fear, that's why it's effective, because you feel that fear and you're controlling yourself. Self-control is internal strength. So control yourself and refrain from texting her most of the time. That's what I would say there. All right. Hey, thank you. Appreciate that. Another couple super chats here. Thanks, guys. Really, really appreciate it. Okay, what are some other topics to use for cold reads besides where she's from, what her job is, etc.? Another example of that is how many brothers and sisters she has. You can say like, "You have some older brothers, don't you?" And then just be like, "Oh, you kind of have that. You kind of have that vibe about you, where you have older brothers, whatever." Or, "Are you the middle child?" That's You have to be careful with the way you say that one because it could be deemed insulting. You don't want to insult. You want to playfully tease with that one. So you could say like, "Are you the middle child?" and smile. And she's like, "Yeah, why?" And you're like, "Ah, I can tell." That's another one that you could do. So you could do brothers and sisters, middle child, youngest, oldest. Are you the oldest child? You seem kind of assertive. Whatever. Just make sure you don't make it insulting. What else? Um, you could guess why she's in town. Like, "Hey, is there like a modeling convention in town?" It's a little cheesy, but it's another example, you know? Um, you could guess some activity that she loves. So you could say like, "You're really into golf, huh? Aren't you? You really love knitting." And again, you don't want to insult. You want to be playful if you're going to tease a little bit with that. So those are a couple of other subjects that you could use. All right, Brian says, I find that places that offer dancing most ladies like, and you break the touch. Yeah. Yeah, social dance is a great, great way to meet women as well. Salsa, especially, stuff like that. Ballroom dancing is classy also. Classy people tend to do it. So definitely dance is a good place to meet women if you're into that. And you don't have to talk as much. So if you are introverted, that is another really great place to meet women. Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. And thank you, Christian. Appreciate you. Thanks for all of that, guys. All right, so it looks like there are no more questions for now. So that's going to end the live stream for today. I will be back with you at the same time next week. So if you have more questions, definitely bring those and I'll try to get to as many as I can. And thank you for being here with me. Hope you got some value out of this, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Cheers. Thanks, guys. Yeah, have a great week too.